After Poppy's ferocious, at times warlike ETP, with its depictions of Poppy bringing about a nearly biblical rapture or fighting a war in a dark, desolate world, the more somber pace of her kind of surprised me. Flux surprised me even more. Starting out with a noisy intro, it turned into more of a poppy radio rock anthem than I expected. Despite this, I've actually found that the Flux song and music video are some of her darkest material yet, and they express a side of Poppy I wasn't really cognizant of beforehand. Over time, I've come to really appreciate the song as an entryway into personal feelings of fluidity and the ways that bad events, which for Poppy, her mistreatment at the hands of other people, can alter the ways you can interact with the world. I'll start with what I feel are two essential motifs found throughout the song, the first being that Poppy feels like she is an object for other people to use, the other being that Poppy's solution to this problem is to become fluid and flux with what happens to her. The verses describe her objecthood. The first verse states, "My body is fluid because I've been through it all, chewed up and used, it's cut into pieces to feed them all." This puts Poppy's body and selfhood at stake as the very objects that are getting chewed up and cut apart, which I add selfhood here to point towards an interiority for Poppy, to indicate that in my reading, the selfhood is also material to be affected by other people. The second verse states her objecthood more overtly, require no permission, just ask for forgiveness. There's no second guessing, I'm just a possession. The next motif, fluidity, comes up in the chorus. You can't oppose it, that's just how it goes, yeah, you got to flux and flow with it. Where the term flow ties the chorus back to the first line of the song, my body is fluid. Here Poppy has given in, declaring that she can't fight back, so she will merely let it happen and change with it. After how she's been treated by others, she's no longer resisting other people. The bridge expands on this as a means to prepare for the future. I won't fear what I don't know, you gotta flux and flow, flow, flow. She no longer fears how other people are going to bully her, because she knows she can flux and flow through it, allow their actions to happen, and merely go with it. The music video for Flux is really good at bringing this to life and expanding on it, particularly through its mixing of 2D and 3D and its showcasing of both Poppy's mistreatment and bodily fluidity. We begin by entering a portal into a new, unfamiliar dimension. First we see a very Tim Burton-esque moon, which soon transitions to a nauseated sun that vomits over the landscape, bringing light into a sort of Candyland world. It is filled with animated flora and fauna which contrast with the very human Poppy, who begins her journey through it skipping like a child. The mood here is nostalgic yet ominous, familiar yet threatening. With these bizarre plants and creatures in the mix, the childlike paradise Candyland instead becomes an alien landscape filled with potential death traps. As a result, the setting already builds into the theme of Poppy's objecthood, where she travels through the Candyland more like potential prey rather than a tourist. It's soon shown that Poppy is at the mercy of the environment around her as she comes in conflict with the Candyland creatures. The first creature that attacks her is a bunny. She pets it on the head only for it to morph into a mutant and start biting. Soon after, she's seen fleeing away from glistening crystals which stab at her. Finally, she allows a bird to sit on her shoulder as she continues her journey, only for it to turn on her and peck at her, forcing her to run. You can already see a little bit of Poppy's fluxing and flowing with these encounters. She never shows any fear until attacked, and merely runs away once any danger presents itself. Even when encountered with a vicious-looking wolf with its teeth literally sticking out, she shows no signs of fear or running away like a zebra might in the face of a lion. The idea of fluidity expands when she undergoes physical transformation, which there are two primary ones in the video. In the first transformation, she is offered a candy by a giant hippo-like creature, which enlarges her when she eats it. Like a kid experimenting with a newfound power, she begins to purposely step on the creatures below her in what is one of the few moments in the video where she has power. What stops this from overriding the theme of passivity is that she is enabled into her large stature by the hippo, which towers over her like a potential threat before it hands her the candy, and she never chooses it for herself. Her childlike demeanor suggests that this is not a form she is used to, and she is merely experimenting and flowing with her new, unexpected size, and it is still the result of another's actions on her. She does eventually go back to her original size, but this happens only after a cut in the video, suggesting the effect merely wore off. She is at the mercy of the hippo and the candy's effects. It is the second and climactic transformation, when she transforms from flesh to cartoon, that most overtly demonstrates Poppy as an object to be acted on by others, because this transformation is controlled by the video and by the animator. While she walks through a cave in the Candyland, the video suddenly cuts to a psychedelic sequence that begins the transformation. Recalling the first verse, the video divides her body into pieces to be transformed by the animator into cartoon form, going arm by arm, leg by leg. While Poppy swings out her limbs in a way that might suggest autonomy, as if it were a magical girl sequence, this is actually her flowing through the video's and animator's actions. Rather than activate or start the transformation like a typical magical girl, it's the video that cuts to its beginning, so she never had control or choice over what happened to her. Once the full transformation is complete, her full body is shown, inert and passive with her eyes closed, showing that as she swung out her limbs and lay back, she was merely allowing a transformation she could not fight against. What is important to note is that when she physically transforms, her relationship to the environment around her also changes. When she becomes giant, her position in the world changes from potential victim to that of a predator, changed into a potential actor through the actions of the hippo and her own newfound size. Her childlike experimentation with this form shows that she is cognizant of it and feels it, meaning that her interiority changes with it, her self-image. In a literal sense, what she is capable of doing and how everything else can affect her changes. While it's easiest to see this in the enlargement, the transformation from 3D to 2D also comes with these physical, positional, and subjective changes as well. Once animated, Poppy is no longer distinct and separate from the animated creatures around her. Materially, she has honestly become one. While it can only be speculated on, this change comes perhaps with its own feelings of being alien, mutant, or separate from other 3D people who reside in the world she came from. She has definitely become more of part of the Candyland world than the real world we the audience live in. I see these as visibly showing the sort of bodily fluidity Poppy is feeling when she says her body gets used, crumpled, and torn apart by other people, as she is literally transforming in the video the way she feels her body is fluid in real life. When thinking about how the transformations show that her relationship to the environment changes as well, I think that suggests that Poppy feels this sort of bodily fluidity because her relationship to her world changes as she gets mistreated. She feels that the very ways she can interact with the world fluxes with each perpetrator. Some people might miss just how dark and sad the song is because of its anthemic pacing. On the Genius page, someone made an annotation. According to vocabulary, the noun flux describes something that constantly changes. If your likes, dislikes, attitudes, dreams, and even friends are changing all the time, you may be in flux. In this lyric line, Poppy could possibly be saying that many people go through changes in life that you won't be able to go against to prevent it. You will have to flow with it and continue with your life. I don't think it really dives into what is changing about Poppy and why she decided to flow with it. It avoids specifying that Poppy's fluxing is a response to other people's actions, which both in the video and in her lyrical descriptions of herself, she is presenting herself as a future object. She prepares herself for another person to use her, and in the video she moves from one attacker to the next, one bodily transformation to the next. A sad reality is that one bad event can render a person vulnerable to further manipulation like a domino effect. The song is not about mere life changes, but a cycle Poppy finds herself trapped in where she feels she can't prevent herself from falling into another perpetrator's grasp, or prevent them from hurting her. She is letting herself be used, accepting the fluxes in her own person that come with it, in an act to claim a small amount of autonomy over what is happening to her. I also think it misses the whole idea of what Poppy means when she's describing herself as fluid, which I'll attempt to coin the term fluid body in describing what I feel she's conveying. Although a fluid body may not strictly change physical form, what does change at a minimum is their interiority and the ways they are able to act, similar to how Poppy's transformations influenced what she could do in the Candyland world. With each bad event, each flux and flow, the fluid body finds that the very space they can take up within the structures around them changes. Maybe school doesn't feel the same, maybe their job doesn't feel the same, etc., because they can no longer perform their roles right, maybe that of a proper student or an active citizen. No longer able to maintain the limited positions offered to them, fluid bodies slip and slide and risk flowing through the cracks of any apathetic institution that no longer cares about them. As a result, fluid bodies often feel powerless and hopeless and may give up on trying to change their lives. In some ways, I feel like I crudely identify the fluid body as a person who does not fight back and or accepts how other people are going to mistreat them. This can be seen in the Chromatica album cover, where Lady Gaga is subjecting herself to technological advancements, as well as the Love and Affection for Stupid Little Bitches album by Black Dresses, where I feel the duo are acting almost toxically cute, that they almost offer themselves up for mistreatment with the catch, "You're a horrible person if you do anything to me." Unfortunately, what Poppy frames as adaptability in her quest for autonomy may actually be an inability to maintain a stable position in life, and an acceptance of that instability. Yet there may be a silver lining to the fluid body, in that though its origins are sad and tragic, it's a body that can develop new perspectives on the world that has no place for it, that in trying to fit back into the molds it used to be solid in, it can critique the system it once belonged to. There can always be hope that when the fluid body flows through the cracks, what it finds is not death, but a new way of living, cut off from us by the strict rules of our culture. This hopeful talking should not distract too much from the realities of being a fluid body, though. It is most commonly extremely overwhelming and despair-inducing, and without a proper safety net or social support, it can end very tragically. And even in the video, as Poppy makes it through the portal out of the Candyland, she is left exhausted. With Poppy's upcoming album being literally named Flux, I hope that she fully embraces the vulnerability of tracks like Flux and Her, and that she really lets listeners in on what it feels like to be the new Poppy of today that she has gradually transformed into. I hope that it can be a work of art that makes people more aware of what coping with traumatic events can feel like, and hopefully we can better identify and reach out to the fluid bodies around us who risk flowing out of their lives as they know it. Though unlike the rage expressed in Eve, it feels like Flux coexists with it, where the sadness and the helplessness result in that ferocious anger. I, for one, am looking forward to the sadness before the storm.